Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second pilot of our Cafes for a New World. And the idea of these pilots is to test drive the activities that I hope that we will be doing literally around the country around the notion of bringing a new picture into view. And we'll talk about that new picture in a few minutes. Um, we will like to share something with you. So I want to talk a little bit about what the what I'm calling the New World Cafes. What is this about? I want us to talk about today the survey results. Now, when you got the flyer, I think two or three flyers ago, um, there was a survey attached to it. A number of you opened it up and read it and started answering it and then stopped. But the people who actually did the whole survey, I would like to share the results of that with you. Um, I want to talk about vision declarations and what that means and how that affects us, all of us. Um, I want to talk about our experiences in holonic consciousness. I know that because this is a new way of thinking about thinking, this is a new way of um, being, not as an individual in the world, walled off from the world, but as an a integral part of the world. And I want to wind up talking about um, on a practical level, what are we being the people on this call, the people who will be watching this as on a delayed basis as a recording, and the people who will be participating in our third pilot, which is going to be in August, and I'm going to give you a date. Um, I'm going to try to give you a date for that. Um, it looks like it's going to be the 25th of August, but I will write you and let you know whether that's going to be the solid date there. Okay. And that's going to occupy a couple of hours. And like I said, if at 12 we're still here and we still wish to, we will wind up with a short catalyst meditation. Um, I'm going to ask if you got any questions or comments or thoughts right now. And if you do, I will entertain those. And if you don't, and I'm not seeing any hands going up, I'm going to move right on. Oh, the other thing, if you don't know me by now, I keep things moving. So people say, well, you don't wait long enough for questions. It's like, yeah, but you should make sure you have your questions all ready. Um, what I want to do um, is spend not more than 10 minutes or so on the survey questions and the results from that. Let me go to the gallery view for one more second here. Um, who answered the questions? Who worked on answering the questions? Um, um, and I see some of us have. And I'm glad to see that. And many of us didn't, and that's okay. Um, I'll report you next time. That's that was called a joke. But I am thinking of some kind of way of rewarding the people who actually take the time to answer the questions, and it really helps to focus my attention even when I don't agree with what the person said. We're not trying to create a let's all agree with Sharif um, uh, version here. Um, we get stronger when we actually test our ideas with each other. And uh, sometimes when we're busy in the middle of testing, I get a little bit testy, but I really think that we are stronger for being able to um, the we are stronger for being able to do that. So let me go back to let's look a bit at our survey. Our first question, are revolutions always violent? Do you have any examples of nonviolent revolutions? Well, those who answered the question um, said no. The term revolution does not in and of itself imply violence, but we were kind of hard pressed to come up with examples of nonviolent revolution. Some said, "I know that it doesn't imply it, but I can't come up with any examples." Some came up with the most obvious examples, Gandhi's Salt March. Um, Someone said, I do not recall ever being taught about nonviolent revolutions other than the unexpectedly hearing about Havel's Velvet Revolution and a brief reading about Gandhi's Salt Walk. Someone else said, how is revolution defined? I would suggest that the movement of organic farming is a form of peaceful revolution. Um, I would push back on that. The notion of revolution um, implies a structural change, and I actually think it implies a change of consciousness. Um, the change to organic farming is a type of change of consciousness, but given the number of very old conscious businesses that are greenwashing themselves as being organic because they can make more money that way, that they're the thing that they're concerned about is making more money, not about the health of the society or the health of the planet or anything like that. Um, I think that there are lots and lots of movements, and we need to be looking at how that becomes a revolution. However, um, that's not, well, I'm not going to talk about that today. We can reserve that for a conversation when we get face to face in these cafes. Um, the uh, Matthew is saying, how about the MAGA takeover or FDR's New Deal or LBJ's Great Society? I think that each of those was slash is a major change in our political structure. Um, some of those changes have been larger um, and more comprehensive for the society than others. Um, when we think about all of the different ways that, for example, FDR's New Deal made things very different and very good for people who have been out of work and out of everything. But we also remember he came across lots of opposition for that. I mean, like people didn't like that primarily because it was new and we don't like new. Um, and so all of that um, uh, we need to be thinking about as we're thinking about potential change in our society. Another question was, um, what kind of change will you be satisfied with? And there were a number of different options that you had, including status quo. And everybody was saying that they were looking for a fundamental change, a consciousness change in the society. Um, Major systems that are invested in the continuance of the status quo to assure their maintained power and massive wealth cannot be changed by a single approach or strategy. Yes. And some other day, I'll tell you why I'm stretching that out. Um, I'll tell you what my yes is based on. During the civil rights struggle, we think about Martin Luther King on the Washington Mall, um, culmination of a march. I have a dream. Okay, we got that as a vision, but there were dozens and dozens of other activities that were going on that fed that movement. And people were bringing different energies and different qualities to the civil rights movement. One of the biggest ones is something that King didn't start, and that was um, the sitting down at the Woolworths counters and kind of the lunch protests. Very powerful, very effective, and those that come from a different direction. The Freedom Riders was a different direction. And so a number of approaches and a number of strategies all weave together, some of them very successful, and some of them not successful at all. But that's the kind of thing that makes a movement happen. Um, Multiple types of change. Number one, a new vision embraced and embodied by most people. Two, adoption of new ethics and values, consciousness. Three, creative problem solving that breaks through the ingrained narrative and exposes its true problematic cost to the earth and humans. And four, embodiment of the new vision and acceptance of the related new ethics, virtues, and values the vision require. Um, yes. And I'm going to be echoing some of that in uh, when we get down into the vision declaration. Um, one more. Consistent commitment to the new vision despite the sacrifices it may require. Yeah. Um, um, this is one of the things I've said a number of times, and that is that uh, if we're doing this, you have to be in it for the long haul. You think of the number of times the leaders of the first thing that happens to the leaders of a movement is you all go to prison. Um, that's what we're going to dry you out. That's what we're going to figure out who's really part of this. Um, Václav Havel's time in prison was, I think, a total of 5 years. Um, Nelson Mandela had the long distance record for that 29 years. Um, yeah, are you consistent and are you committed? Um, Havel said something some years ago that when he was in prison, he tried to hold the energy that they could not put him in prison. He said that every day when he woke up, he made his bed. Um, he took care of his uh, bodily needs. He thought about his how he was going to be there, that the other prisoners were his neighbors, the guards were his neighbors. I mean, like he put this other thing into his mind. But he said that at one point in time, the prison officials said, "Yeah, we can release you just right now. All you have to do is fill out this form and sign it, and then you could be home with your wife by this evening." And he said it was a real moment of weakness on his part that he actually signed the statement, because the very next thing they said was, "Oh, we were wrong. It's not this statement. There's really two statements. You got to sign another one now." And he knew that if he signed that one, there'd be another one and another one and another one. They would have him in the system. They would have his participation in his imprisonment. Um, and he chose not to do that. But yeah, a consistent commitment to a new vision. Um, and then collaborative problem solving for the good of all. Um, and the good of all statement is not just oh yeah, we're working for the good of all. It's like this is the litmus test that we have to follow. If it's not working for the good of all, you haven't finished the job yet. The job is still open, and you need to be there to stop that. Um, and I think this is the last question. Do you think that it is possible for human beings to share consciousness with other than human beings? Well, that's a question for this stacked deck. The answer, of course, is yes, because if your answer was something else, you're in the wrong spot. And so yes, and that we people said that more eloquently, but yeah, I mean the not only is it possible, not only are we doing this now, but we can create systems and structures, including political systems, economic systems, based on a sharing consciousness and working for the good of all. Okay, so Jenna.
I would like to have a discussion about the term revolution.
Mhm.
I personally would prefer evolution. And when I hear the word revolution, it's always with an against energy. And it feels, in today's world, it feels like waving a flag in front of a bull. So another alternative might be transformation, but in terms of changing our consciousness, we're usually thinking of up-leveling it or evolving personally. And just sharing that from my standpoint, but I'd like to hear what others think about the term revolution versus something else.
Okay, I have a comment, and I have the feeling you know what my comment is. So I'm going to keep my comment to myself right now, and we will see if others wish to say anything regarding that. And I'm not seeing any hands, and I'm also not seeing any digital hands. Um, and in the chat. Um, J.A. Wims, or is that Williams, short? You can correct me on that. Said that they agree with Jenna. Okay, so y'all ganging up on me then. Um, okay, I'm this
You're
is
going to ignore my raised hand, or you didn't see
oh
it? Oh, that's right.
yes,
I forgot. My hand is the same shade as my background.
right, yeah, I was going to say, I just saw you pop up there. Yeah. No, I am not going to ignore your raised hand, and you're going to tell me what's going on.
Okay. Well, I think that the word revolution is important to use. I hear often people saying, "I don't like the connotation of this word. Let's get rid of it and use something else."
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that is not a good communication tool. It's a good a personal opinion to express. Um, but I like revolution, nonviolent revolution, because it implies a different kind of change. We know what evolution is. Actually, we all have some understanding of what evolution is. Um, but and let me just say, in terms of evolution, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Evolutionary speaking, something that was not a chicken laid an egg of something that hatched to be a chicken. So the egg must have come first because in order for there to be a chicken, it had to hatch. And if there were no chickens before, then it wasn't a chicken that laid the egg.
Okay. Um, Not addressing the second part, addressing the first part. Um, if you look at the people who are upset or not happy with the term revolution, it's because the system that makes that encourage you to think of revolution in terms of violence did a really good job. Um, and of keeping away from you the existence of um, nonviolent um, structural change and um, throwing up in our faces um, the situation with equating violence with revolution. I told you when we were in when I was in Sri Lanka and I was working with Dr. Aryaratne on the peace campaign that we had. And we're having the largest gathering of people who were not associated with a particular religion to get together to meditate for peace. 500,000 people. And one of my jobs was to try to get the Western press to pay attention. And they were completely um, focused on not being there. And so I'm calling up the BBC and saying, there's going to be 500,000 people dressed in white, meditating for peace. And the BBC reporter said, do you think it'll turn violent? Do you think the Tamil Tigers will attack it? And what I should have said is, yes, we've got death threats already. They'd be all over it. Okay. But the fact that we were peaceful, that everybody was peaceful, that that was that was the definition of not news. And that not news seeps all the way down so that all of the examples in our head, running around in our heads, um, were predicated on um, uh, a false image. If you only pay attention to one side of an image, it's a false image. So, Matt. Matthew.
There, I get the mic on. Okay.
Okay.
I
Oh,
missed the first
one of
comment.
those. Yeah, there's that one.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've most of my spare time recently has been working with Indivisible, with the No Kings demonstrations and Mobilize and the Working People's Party and fun stuff like that. I'll tell you, I've been doing my best to keep up with the videos, but normally I'm out in Michigan and the timing just rarely works for me. But I'm really appreciative of what you're doing, the consciousness aspect. Being a unity minister, I know that the consciousness comes first, and so I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I do my best to keep plugged in, even though I'm not on your calls very often. But I'm not sure what my question is, but the thought comes to my mind, which that faith without works is dead. So we got to be establishing that faith in the possibility. What I see in the news, it's very it's hard to be positive with a lot of things that are going on. So we got to keep a vision of what is possible. So I'm a little disappointed that there's only 8 or 9 of us on this call, 10 I guess now. So how do we get this? I think that's what you're working on, right? Is how to get this into the general consciousness, the holonic idea, which I think is great. I really love how you're putting it all together. Makes a lot of sense for me, and I share it quite often in different situations that I'm in. So I keep asking, what's the next step that we can do? And I think that's why I tuned in today, to get a little bit to ask the question: what's the next step?
Yep.
How do we get this consciousness growing?
And change happens when we are united in consciousness, and when we are aware of the steps that are the positive steps that are in front of us that we take in order for us to move forward. With regard to our activity, I talk about the vision declaration, and this is something that we did in Sri Lanka. The war in Sri Lanka lasted 30 years, and kept getting stronger and stronger, unfortunately. And when I got there, the island was pretty much divided between the Buddhists on one side and the Tamils, the Hindus on the other. The Buddhists, the government was largely Buddhist and was largely against the Tamils in the north and the east. if we want to, I would be glad to share with you what Commonway's role was there and the role that we played in stopping the war. We actually stopped this shooting war in its tracks. Very, very heavy process, and we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about is after the shooting stopped, there are a lot of questions about who is it that determines what the next step is. The government was saying, "Oh, we are the next step. We've got the next step. Everybody can go home now, and don't get involved with anything. We've got this covered." And to its credit, Sarvodia, the organization I worked with, was not buying that. Now the Tamil Tiger says, "Oh no, we've got this covered. We're the ones that will determine what's in our area." And what we were saying was that all of us together should be doing this, should be talking about this. There have been a number of political movements in the 21st century. It's interesting how they get the news. The traditional news media only talk about them when they can't be ignored any longer. The Velvet Revolution in starting in Czechoslovakia and going out to throughout first Eastern Europe and then the rest of Europe was very consciously nonviolent and very consciously successful, very consciously going up against a regime that was very, very willing to be violent with people who were practicing nonviolence. And so that became very powerful. This also led to a number of the other people power revolutions. The Orange Revolution in Ukraine, the Cedar Revolution in Lebanon, the Arab Spring. There's just lots and lots of activities. And I have a whole presentation around what are the elements of the people power revolutions and how do we bring that about in our areas. Tiananmen Square was kind of the culmination point of a lot of that. First of all, it was probably the most out there of the people power revolutions, and was also out there in terms of the massive and violent repression of the activity. If you are not familiar with these terms, lying flat or let it rot, I have videos on them, but I just watched something yesterday, and I will give you a link to it. I'm going to give you a link to it. And this is what's happening in China right now, where young people are choosing not to participate in the system. They're saying the game is fixed. I can't get a job. I can't get a house. I can't get married because I can't get a job and I can't get a house. And I'm not participating. And so the movement is called, I think it's like P Peng, but I don't know. But it translates to lying flat. I'm going to just lie flat. I'm going to do the minimum amount of work that I can do to get fed. I'll sit around and watch TV and do nothing. And the Chinese government has said this is one of the greatest threats that they have ever experienced, and have said that unless you get active, our system can collapse. And the young people are saying, let it rot. This is something that shouldn't be, that isn't worthy of our activity. Um, right now, when I mean right now, I mean like literally in the news right now in India is what they're calling the cockroach movement, when a one of the ministers, the cabinet ministers, referred to young people who can't, or complaining that they can't get jobs, calling them cockroaches. Well, that was a mistake. That guy's looking for a job right now. Um, to kind of show you the movement, what happens when cockroaches get organized. So all of these things have no precedent in traditional power politics. Um, they're not doing, and none of these things have been doing traditional politics. We are creating a whole new tradition in politics. Therefore, we need to be really, really clear what our values are, and really, really clear, and not allow ourselves to be steered down one direction or another. Um, and so let's look at some of the steer. Oh, so these are, I went through Wikipedia and looked at I literally looked at all of the different political and uh, the political ideologies, and it was 25 pages long. That was just the list of them. Okay. And all of them, every one of them had something in that was similar. They were all based on European consciousness. They all came from all the stuff that I studied in college when I thought my major was going to be political science. And I was like, I took a couple of courses and said, you guys got to be kidding. And I changed my major. Um, all based on breaker consciousness. Now, even when you look at, for example, the communist revolution in China, well, that was very Chinese, Mao Zedong and all the rest of them, but it was based on Marx and Lenin, and what was going on in Russia, etc. So all of these had a particular kind of consciousness. And a large part of that consciousness is humans first, or humans only. When I look at very current movements, um, they're still based around the wants and needs of particular subcategories of human beings. If you look at, for example, monarchism or corporatism, we're talking about some very, very small groups of people who are trying to determine the good of billions and billions of humans. Um, Even the ones that say, oh, we are pro-life, the way they talk and the way that they connect with each other, they are focusing on human life or what's good for human beings. Now, all that is the I guess the I won't say the opposite. Another way of looking at that is I just said that already. So another way of looking at this is a holonic political theory, a holonic economic theory. And this would be based on what I call relationism, or the notion of a relational governance, relational power, that we are in relationship with each other, and therefore no one's opposing anybody else. Everyone's trying to achieve something, and they're trying to achieve it in the best way possible. Now, it may mean that in a given in a given situation where you are trying to achieve something and someone else is trying to achieve it, you may be at odds in how you achieve it. But that doesn't mean that I'm against you. It doesn't mean that I'm opposed to you. It may mean that we have differing ways of achieving a particular thing. One of my examples of this, literally around the world, um, I think that one thing that is true all around the world, and we in the West don't understand that truth the way that you do in the third world, is bad traffic. Um, you've never seen bad traffic until you've been in the rest of the world. Um, um, in Nepal, in Kathmandu. Kathmandu is a city with 1 million people in it. They have 12 traffic lights. Now, the 12 traffic lights only go from the palace to the airport. So the king, when they had a king, could stop the traffic that was getting in his way of going to get to his airplane. So he could just stop the traffic and then they could start it up again. And the rest of the city is complete and total chaos. And people make it work. And so one of the things I see happening around the world, and this is my example of relationalism, is number one rule: take the advantage for yourself. If there's 2 feet in front of you, then you're going to put your car in that 2 feet. Take as much road as you possibly can, then help everybody else. And by helping I mean, you tell someone, move your car up a little bit more, move your. Now, that help does not involve you moving back 1 inch. If you took that inch, that's your inch. So take the advantage for yourself, but help everybody else. That's how traffic moves in the third world. And that's how we can move in this situation. Another really important issue, and I think this is true in the 20th century. The 20th century was marked by some of the most violent revolutions, violent conflicts between human beings. The American Civil War was the first industrial war, industrial scale war, where you had large groups of people opposing each other and large machines. This is where repeating rifles. This is where Gatling guns. This is, I mean, we developed the mechanics of warfare. This is where battles in one day could have 100,000 casualties, where in a particular battle you could have tens of thousands of people dying in an afternoon. Um, and then from there, we ramped it up. And every war created this whole other level, the whole other class of violence. Now, the opposite of that is what I see when I'm looking at living beings in relationship with each other, even when they are cooperating with each other. No ant can tell another ant what to do. All of them are working for the good of the hive, but no one can tell me how to work for the good of the hive. I know I am connecting to the spirit of the hive. You can suggest some things, but I'm listening with my ears and you're listening with your ears. And no one can tell me, another ant can't tell me you're doing it wrong, do it this way over here. I gave this a couple of these things as examples some time ago. I can't remember which video it's in, but I was watching a large ant colony trying to get a very big beetle down into their colony. And there were like 4 or 5 different theories on how to move this beetle. Each group of ants was actually working it. One group literally just picked the whole beetle up and trying to shove it down this little hole. Now, the second group was trying to open up the hole, make the hole big enough to take the whole beetle in. The third group, and they're all doing the same thing at the same time. The third group is cutting off the arms and legs and head and carrying it down in the hole piece by piece. And the fourth group was inside the beetle, cutting out chunks of beetle and taking those chunks down. And all together, they got the job done. Now, the second example was not with beetles, but with human beings, where I was in New York City, came across a guy who was sleeping on a heat grate and within his sleeping bag, and his bag literally froze to the heat grate. So he was trapped inside of his sleeping bag. He couldn't open it. And a group of us, like 4 or 5 of us, and later turned to like 20 of us, were trying to free him from this bag. Now, each of us had a theory on how to do that. Some were trying to thaw out the zipper to unzip the bag. Others of us, I was in the brute force group, was just trying to pull the bag off of the metal steam grate by force. There's a guy standing in the wings with this big knife, and he's like, okay, when do I slice him out of here? There were a couple of people who were talking to the guy very calmly, like, there's a bunch of people out here. We're all for you. We're all gonna, get you out of here, etc. And no one could tell anybody else you're doing it wrong. This is not the way to do it. Okay. This is we all we recognize that because we all had the same goal. The goal was get this guy out of there. Um, After a few, as like maybe 5, 10 minutes or so, I gave up my spot because there are other people standing there waiting to help this guy. And so it turned out to be this community building event of getting the bag open, getting him out of there. I walked about a half a block. I was doing a speaking event in New York, and I was walking to my speaking event, and I heard this cheer go up. They got the bag open. They got the guy out of the bag, and I saw people were patting this guy on the back, and he was smiling. And the people who had walked away, like me, we're like a block away and we're cheering. And people are wondering what we're cheering about because we're cheering that all of us were successful in doing this thing for us, not just for the guy trapped in the bag. Now, it was really the one other really interesting thing was the entire time there was a guy standing around telling us not to do that. Don't work to get this guy out of the bag. We don't know what we're doing. We're interfering with the police department's job. Professionals are on their way. They'll know what to do. We could be opening ourselves to a lawsuit. I mean, he just kind of was going blah 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 blah, and it was just amazing how effectively we ignored him. There was no interest whatsoever in how to, yeah, to like, oh, maybe we should wait for the police sleeping bag frozen division to come and do whatever they were going to do. Um, our work is governed by a shared consciousness. And that's something that I think is very um, important. And this is something that for those I've talked to in the Velvet Revolution and in other people power revolutions, they talked about feeling the energy of the consciousness of the group. What I'm trying to do is extend that shared consciousness beyond just the humans. If we listen for it, we get it. If we don't listen for it, then we keep ourselves locked in this human-centric, human-only way of looking at the world, and that's not a good place to be. Okay, I am going to stop at this point and see if there are any questions, comments, thoughts. I see stuff is going into the um, into the chat box here. Um, uh, um, okay, Greg, you said this is an important idea that I've never heard. Can you provide a source, or do I have to search on my own? Which idea are you talking about?
It was a reply to Jenna's talk about Mao's change being more than a political model and moving the population away from the Confucian idea of values of nature.
Um, oh, So you were replying to Jenna. Okay, got it.
Right. We were having a side conversation while you were,
How dare you?
well,
This is, I don't know what to say about that.
well,
Um,
Sharif, part of the problem of me being a follower of yours since 2009 is that I've heard a lot of your stories, so I have time to do other things while you tell them again.
you, I am mortified that I mean, the whole idea is to get you to the point that you're going to actually tattoo these things on your arm so that you
Oh,
can refer to them all the time.
well, I
Um,
wasn't typing during the sleeping bag one because I had never heard that one before.
really? Okay. Yeah.
Yes, but
Uh,
um, anyway, all teasing aside, but uh, I learned something from Jenna, which is really important because this was her master's thesis
yeah.
idea, which means that I still don't know whether I agree, but that's well sourced.
Yeah. Um, and now here is the thing I want to remind us of, that this medium is not the tool for this level of conversation. That if I that what I want to be able to do is to have each one of you in your location turn to your local group and say, what do you think about that? What were your thoughts about how Mao took the communist revolution in a very different direction in his work, and what were some of the, I mean, there was the communist revolution, then there was the cultural revolution on top of that, which is a whole other situation. And also, I don't know if any of you saw the movie that was in uh, Netflix, The Three Body Problem. I don't know if you read the book. I read the books. I don't know if you saw the movies. I saw the movies. And it was a recasting of the Cultural Revolution that I thought was really, really powerful. And the fact that this guy got his book written in China, he is Chinese, I thought was really interesting. Um, This is my time of day. I start sneezing, and if I talk about it, it doesn't come. Jenna, really quickly, because we are going to.
Just very quickly, I wanted to clarify. I was working on an interesting idea with my master's in sociology that was really about the sociology of art. And I needed an example of art being used to change something at the social level.
Mhm.
And so there were um, there was a periodical that started in 1948 and ran the whole length of Mao's rule that had images in it. And so it was this perfect source of data where there was visual art that was being used to convey change ideas. And that's what the thesis was really about.
Yep. And one of the things that happened, starting with the Bolsheviks and extending through um, well, the notion of the heroic aspects um, of art, of looking at the world in a particular way. And I'm calling on some of the imagery that happened in this the movie series, The Three Body Problem, as being indicative of how to do that. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get one more section done. call a small break, and then we'll go to the last one. Okay. Or maybe we should just let me do the break right now and then come back and finish with the vision declaration and then move on into holonic consciousness and what we will be doing. So shall we do 5 minutes? Five. Shall I set a timer? And come right back when the timer goes off in 5 minutes, and I'll be right back. So what is this thing I call a vision declaration? As I said earlier, when we finally got the shooting war stopped, all the parties wanted to determine how people govern themselves. And I thought it was really important to have people determine how people govern themselves. What a concept. So, the vision declaration, and I don't know why it's going backwards. Okay, try again. A vision declaration is a statement of unity. It's a statement of what are your future intentions. Okay, by the way, this is the stuff you don't get from the No Kings. I don't even call that a movement. It's an activity. What do you want? What do you actually really want? And what are your intentions, and how do we unite around those intentions? What are our common values? Now, I know the values on the left, I know the values on the right, but what are the values that all of us hold in common? The true leaders of our society have did a really good job of doing that. And that could be as far back as George Washington, and it can be as far forward as John Kennedy, maybe even Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Um, but yeah, what are our common values? And I try to articulate what should be our common values whenever I get get in a position to do so. And you should be able to state the problem that you're trying to change, the vision that you're aiming for, and the solutions along the way. So this notion of the cafes for a new society is a statement of we're not together with each other, we're not together with even with ourselves, and we're definitely not together with the larger than human world, and we're going to be addressing all of that. So we this happened in 2000, end of 2001, beginning of 2002, when the shooting war stopped, and the first time Sri Lankans had the ability to travel the entire island. I got in a vehicle, in a Sarvodia vehicle, and we drove from Matra in the absolute south up to Jaffna, and you could do that for the first time in 30 years. Pretty heavy duty stuff. So we organized a bunch of meetings that we called People's Peace Tables, that got morphed into what then was called Deshodia being the political awakening. And What we found is that when we started talking to people, they were all saying the same thing, which I thought was really, really great. And they're saying the same thing, and none of the politicians were even listening to them. So this came from us listening to a bunch of these peace tables, taking their transcripts, knitting them together, and then saying, "Is this what you're saying?" And people coming up, yeah, this forms a framework for the kind of society I want to live in. And everybody was saying it. It was there weren't divisions in terms of um, Buddhists and Hindus or Sinhalese and Tamils or anything like that. I'm really oversimplifying here because we don't have a lot of time, but this is really important stuff. Um, where they said, "We are the people of Sri Lanka." I'm not going to read this to you. I underlined some things that I thought were really important. Despite our differences, there are common values that unite us all. Um, our future lies in forging a common vision that includes a better world for all. Our society does not meet the basic needs of the people. These problems go far deeper than the present conflict between the government of Sri Lanka and the liberation tigers of Tamil Eelam. We must change our system of governance. That might be one of the most important things I heard in the entire process. We talk about changing government, and what we really mean by that is changing personalities. What personality is going to sit in the White House? They're talking about changing the entire system of governance. Um, Violence is not a part of human nature. It is inequality of power that is the core reason for violence. That's another really important thing that I heard that got incorporated into this vision declaration. The present political system divides and segregates us instead of uniting us. That's what all of them do. All of them do that. In fact, the only one I think that doesn't do that is the Kingdom of Bhutan. Our representatives do not represent us. Vested interests control our lives. Does any of this sound vaguely familiar? The media is part of the problem. So we all want the same things for our children. Let us start with that. Again, this is a very powerful statement. Most of the time, especially when people get inflamed, they're focusing on that other. They're not focusing, what do I want for myself? What do I want for my community? What do I want the um, for the future for my children? And if we focus on that, all of a sudden, we're going to be in a position of mutuality. We're going to be in a position of relationship, and we're going to be in a position of how do we move forward on this stuff? We must completely restructure the politics of our country. This is why the government got very unhappy with me. And I faced a death squad going home one day, which I mean, your life does um, whirl before you. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to react. You know almost any reaction you've got other than whimpering and crying is going to be inappropriate. And I'm joking, but I was not joking at the time. And but the complete restructuring of the politics of a country is what we need. And no kings will not deliver that. And what we're going to do will deliver it. It is time that we create a democratic and participatory mode of governance that goes far beyond conventional representative democracy. The people must ultimately lead. So, right now, in this country, our governance structure is going away. It's dissolving in front of our faces right now, in real time. What are we going to do about that? How do we intend to replace that? And that's going to be one of the things that we talk about in the Consciousness Cafe. So what I see happening through September and the rest of the balance of this year is us organizing ourselves around small groups of conversation holders. And this is not going to just be people of a particular political viewpoint or a particular economic viewpoint. This is going to be people who are just concerned, who are literally concerned about our future. As a convener, Commonway acts as the advocate of the whole. Our job is not to advocate for any particular group or subgroup. It's to keep us focused on the largest possible picture. To not get bought down or get used by any particular side. And our background for that is the Commons Cafe, where we did this in bunches of cities in this country, a couple in other countries, and we wildly successful. People really use this as an opportunity to connect with their neighbors past all the stuff that keeps us not connecting with our neighbors. In terms of our present activities, what I want us to be able to do is not just talk about how do we connect with each other, but actually doing the connection, building the connection. One of the things that's going to be different from what we did with the Commons Cafe is we want to use this as an opportunity to have people create enterprises like the Consciousness Cafe and all the other cafes that come along with it can be opportunities for us to build new enterprises, build new activities, to not if we're holding the Consciousness Cafe and we're doing that at Starbucks, we're missing the point. This should be an opportunity for us to do coffee a whole new way. What if we do it in such a way that instead of it going out there, we keep it in here, wherever here may be for you. Let's look at ways that we can create whole new models of how we work together, how we play together, how we live together, etc. And that we expand those. We keep expanding them so that we get people who are not active right now. When I was talking about in China, people experiencing the phenomena of lying flat. There's an awful lot of people outside my windows that are lying flat, okay, in this society. Angry, disconnected, not knowing what's going on, heavily medicated. Our drug problem is not a problem of individual weakness. Our drug problem is an expression of how we are not connected with each other. That the thing that we need, we're trying to get from a pipe or from a syringe, as opposed to our heart-to-heart, human-to-human connection. And we can do something about that. Our the job of Commonway, the job of those of us, of you, who are going to be conveners of this. My job is to share with you a world of experience that I've gotten over the course of the last 40 to 50 years. Every time I say that, I have to stop. Okay, it's been a long road, okay? But things like Grama Swaraj, things like the Panchayat. Now, you've probably never heard of Grama Swaraj or a Panchayat, and this is how people do politics in the third world. Now, note the folks who are think that they're running the world. What they're doing is running it right into the ground. But the folks who think that they're running the world don't want you to know that there are other ways of doing it. They don't want you to know it. They want you to believe that that is not, that can't happen. And we're looking outside our windows right now at the people power revolutions, at the velvet revolution, at the cockroach revolution. If you open up a newspaper right now, you're going to see the young folks out there who were called cockroaches, and now they're calling themselves cockroaches, and they're changing the government, and the existing government has no idea what to do. That's one thing that's true. Existing governments don't know what to do with people-led revolutions. And that's a good thing. Are there any people who would like to say something or ask something? Jenna, how about you?
The thought that crossed my mind in this last part that you were sharing, Sharif, is there's something else going on today, and that is the impact of where AI may be taking us, all that may disassemble sociologically, societally, even governance-wise. And we don't know what that's going to look like. That's just new, unknown terrain. So what would you be suggesting about not only change coming forward due to these other conditions, but in the face of also a totally different framework of living, and it could happen very abruptly?
I want to say this. I'm pausing because I don't want to over state this. And I I do want to make sure I say it clearly. And Greg, yes, I do see your hand this time. Um, um, I think that the AI phenomena is has the potential of being a massive game changer, and I think it won't be. Um, I I'm betting on life, and I'm betting the things that we will do to um, protect life, to hold life sacred, to recognize the one area that AI is completely blind to is what happens in the human heart and all these other trillions upon trillions upon trillions of hearts that are occupying our planet. I'm going to see if I can find something, a quote for you that's in Creating a World That Works for All. One of the problems of me finding quotes in this book is almost every page is marked. I, the and I want to. This is from a Brazilian theologian by the name of Rubem Alves. And I like him so much. He actually has two quotes in the book. And this was written before, I mean, artificial intelligence has been on the the radar screen for science fiction writers ever since there have been science fiction writers. However, uh, this was before AI, but I'd like us to think about this when we are thinking about AI. And Reverend Alves says, "What is hope? It is the presentiment that imagination is more real and reality is less real than it looks. It is the hunch that the overwhelming brutality of facts that oppress and repress are not the last word. It is the suspicion that reality is more complex than realism wants us to believe, that the frontiers of the possible are not determined by the limits of the actual, and that in a miraculous and unexpected way, life is preparing the creative events which will open the way to freedom and resurrection." So what we're talking about is the freedom and resurrection of an individual. But what we're also talking about is the freedom and resurrection of groups of individuals, of species of individuals, of connections of individuals, and ultimately for the web of life itself. The and that is something that I think will be will carry us through this age of AI. I think we're going to find very quickly that they're overselling what it can do. That we're going to find that there's going to be lots and lots of people who don't want it. and that the cost is more than we want to bear. You will remember that 50 years ago, we had a space program that put human beings on the moon, and then we forgot about it because it wasn't important to us. And so right now, there are all these tech billionaires that are putting their billions and billions of dollars into AI. And what we may find out is that we really, really don't want it. And that they're constantly trying to make me want it. I mean, they keep throwing this AI at me, and I keep throwing it right back, saying no thanks, no thanks. Or once in a while, say, oh, that's useful. I'll take that much of it, but you can keep the rest of it. Greg, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, I just, it's interesting when our attention is directed towards the future, right? We don't know what's going to happen with AI. We also don't know that the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake isn't 5 minutes away. So at any given now, we have to plan what is the next right thing to do. And I'm not worried about how we are going to, in the future, respond to AI. On any given day, we will know what AI is doing and what response is necessary, or any of the other things that the media isn't priming us to expect by surprise.
Right.
Right. So I think in general, our goal should be on any given now that we meet is figuring out what's the next right step.
Yeah. So I mentioned the video I was watching that on China that mentioned lying flat and let it rot. There's the people who put that one together put one together on Dubai, which was, oh my goodness. I knew there was when I was in Dubai, I think something's wrong with this. That there's something um and everything I was feeling, I was thinking and feeling shows up in the video on Dubai. I will try to get both of these to us. Oh wait, I have the video coming out, so I can just stick them in the video. Um, I think it's really important for us to, as Greg was saying, to look at what's actually happening now, to look at what we're not hearing. I mean, there's an awful lot of stuff that we're not hearing. And I think it's available to us, but we have to look to people who are knowledgeable in this. Like I said, yeah, when I'm talking about what's happening in Indonesia or what's happening in New Zealand or what's happening in Russia, it's because I was in Russia, I was in New Zealand, I was in Australia, I was in all these places, and I can tell you that they are that what I saw is not made up out of AI images or anything like that. I experienced these things, and my work is predicated on this. I'm not looking for a solution that works for America. Yeah. No kings doesn't translate outside of the United States. Um, I don't think it translates in the United States. Um, and yeah, we need to be looking at things um, in that way. Yes, Candace, waving her meat hand around.
Yes, I couldn't find the hand, so I just raised my
Yep.
hand.
Yeah.
So I haven't, this is my first time. I'm in Maryland. And I have 15 years ago, I started a dance company called Dance Alchemy. to promote peace through dance. And that's why I was really glad to hear about the art aspect that Jen brought up. Jen, I mean. And my thought for this year, every year I have another theme. My thought for this year was to do create dances to heal planet Earth, because we're seeing what's happening on the planet. And as I'm listening, I'm getting downloads, and I'm thinking about trying to not just create a dance that people can learn and do together, but maybe go into an area where there's butterflies or birds or some other nature, and let's see if they'll dance with us and see if they'll join with us in this exchange. And I'm just really thinking that might be a way to go. So, but part of my doubt, I guess, if you will, is that this isn't like real. It's more, sometimes I feel like it's too pie in the sky, and it's not like real, like this is a good thing you can do to, so I guess I need to, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
On Dancing with Nature or Pie in the Sky, or both?
Both.
Okay. I think the dancing with nature is a good idea and a good start. I think that there's things that you can do that will get the attention of nature. One of the things, there's two things I'm thinking of. I may not be able to find either one of them. There's a video of this girl in a aquarium of some kind, and she is dancing for the dolphins. So they're looking out the tank, and she starts doing cartwheels. And the dolphin opens its mouth like, oh my goodness. Like, I mean, like it doesn't have pointers, but it's got flippers, And the dolphin is then trying to get the other dolphins to look at her, you know. And she's walking on her hands, and she's doing all sorts of other stuff in front of this window. And the dolphin is definitely responding. The dolphins can do something which I have no idea how they do it, but they can blow a bubble ring. It's an O, and it's not, the ring isn't going up; it's going in front of them. And so they're just kind of like moving along, and this O is just like moving right in front of them. And I'm like, how do you do that? Now, we need to be able to meet with each other and talk with each other without the artificial barrier of some business that's trying to make money off of this dolphin being in a tank. I was in Mexico and in Puerto Vallarta. And I was on the part of Puerto Vallarta that had Mexicans, which is it's interesting, like having people who actually enjoy their own country. So I was hanging out in the Mexican part of Puerto Vallarta, and there was the water gets deep really quickly. So within a block, what would be the distance in the water of about a block or so, it's deep enough for the dolphins and even some of the immature whales to come toward the shore. And they were kind of like formed a line in the water, and we, the people, formed a line on the beach, and they were dancing for us. They were doing like cartwheels and they were doing flips, and you could tell they were immature because they weren't good at it, you know. Um, and when one of them would jump or one of them would twirl, we would applaud and we would cheer. And they were so there for about 15 minutes there was this back and forth that was really, really cool. Unstructured, no one was doing it, no one was making it happen. We were very aware of each other and we were very much taken with each other. We can make that happen. We can make that happen on purpose. Um, One of the things, and we've talked about this with our Catalyst meditation group, is that there are beings that are taking on more and more of the behaviors of human beings. Um, there are, I never knew, and if anybody knew that, I never knew that crows knew how to talk. They talk. They speak English, okay?
Wow.
And when you hear them, they have very deep voices, okay? You know how parrots can say words in English, and but they have these really high voices, and crows are like, we ain't playing those games. So, um, um, cats are beginning to speak English. Cats are spending a lot more time standing up. Cats are spending a lot more time sitting like humans. Will sit down on their butts with their feet sticking out. Okay. I'm like, creepy, creepy. And when they sprout some thumbs and get to open up their own cans of cat food, then you're going to see some things really happening. When we start designing cat food that can be opened up by a cat, um,
That'd be funny.
yeah, that'll be interesting. Now, and so the ultimate was there's an orangutan who they have video of him using a saw. He saw somebody else using a saw. He got a piece of wood and he knew what to do. So what happens 50 years from now, when we've got beings who can do all sorts of things with each other, um, beings that actually can take their place in a governance structure that's not just for um, the benefit of humans. I'm going to say this, and then we're going to switch gears to talk about catalyst meditations, and talk about what happens in our third um, pilot that comes in a few weeks from now. Um,
That's really helpful. There's a Baltimore Aquarium. I mean, probably would need permission to get my group in there and dance with the dolphins, but I mean, I've gotten permission for other things, so it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do you think about the whole pie in the sky thing?
um, I think that this is that the notion that we can create a community that includes a political and economic relationship with beings who are not human, I think is the ultimate pie in not even the sky. This pie is everywhere. And I would I'm waiting for people to push back. Not only it can't be done, I'm waiting for somebody to come up and say it shouldn't be done. That we should not be trying to connect with other living beings. I'm waiting for someone to get biblical on me. That these are lesser beings and we should not be trying to communicate with them, and they don't have souls. There's lots and lots of places we can go with this, and we shouldn't be going there. And I'm thinking that those thoughts are going to be held by older people and people who are not younger and kind of used to this notion of, oh yeah, we can not only do this with people on this planet, but we can do it with people, with beings coming from other planets. Right now, I'd hate to think about what would happen if beings from another planet were to reveal themselves to this administration. The first thing is get the nuclear weapons out and blast them, because they're a threat to American values. So yes, definitely pie in the sky. That's where we're going to keep our pie from now on. And we get to interact in different ways. So I was in Sri Lanka, and there were sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena and beings on the ground. And lots of my friends went alien hunting. Um, 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 I didn't, not because I don't think that they're there, but I got enough fish to fry right now trying to deal with people on this planet. But when that time comes, I hope that we're going to be tempered by all the things that we have hypothesized in terms of alien contact, and we would see that it's not necessarily bad, and we're not looking for people that look like us. Um, the One of my favorite movies is The Day the Earth Stood Still. We have aged well together. The movie was made the year I was born. Um, and we need to um, be unfreakable. That's another thing that we, as the leaders of a movement, would do is, don't freak out when somebody says, oh yes, I'm from planet Xeon or whatever. Okay, it's 12 now. I am going to suggest that if somebody has one more thing they would like to say. Oh, Let's talk a little bit about August and September. One of the things I've found is that trying to make this was supposed to be a hybrid event. I should be should be in a room full of people, and all of us should be trying to talk to each other. And I just saw that that's not working. Um, so I want to have in-person gatherings. Um, and some of them will take place in Portland. I may get in a plane and go somewhere else if there are folks who are putting groups of people together. I'll fly to you and you can put us together. Um, and I've got a set of activities that can happen with a small group or with small tables like cafe style in a larger group, where you can be asking questions, you can be making statements. There's really cool exercises. I have a stand-up exercise where you get to look at how you interact with other people around a set of parameters. I know that doesn't say very much, but it's a fun exercise. After you do it, you learn a lot about yourself, you learn a lot about other people, and then you can have a discussion that is very connected. Um, by having this in various locations, by not trying to center everything on me and center everything on Portland, Oregon, we get to fill out a larger framework. And I will give you that framework for your group of 5 or 6 people or 10 or 15 people, or your church group, or your civic group, or all of the things that you are, the different configurations for you. And you're going to get back with me and say, exercises 1 and 3 and 5 were great. Exercises 2 and 4 really sucked. And somebody will have exactly the opposite experience. And we will get these things out into the world. So the Cafes for a New World will take the place of the committees of correspondence that happened during the American Revolution, where people got together in their pubs. So half of them were sloshed probably, and they would talk about things like democracy and rule of law and things like that. Because without TV, you get to talk about really heavy duty things. Um, John Adams said, the American Revolution was won before the first shot was fired. And it was won in these committees of correspondence. We are going to have a fundamentally powerful movement that gets started in the discussion groups, then moves on to I have a visual for you, and I don't know if I can find it real quick. What I'm calling the Hellenic Agora. You will remember in your history. The Agora was the place in Greece where people practiced the economics of their village, but also practiced the politics of their village. And you see this figure here doing a speech, and people down here listening, and other people just sitting out having coffee, and people are buying their fresh fruits and vegetables, and they're acting the way people act if they're in a living community, not the mall. Okay. And that's something that we can look at and eventually look at this as an awakening experience of us not needing all the things that we are told by society that we need. We need a machine to think for us. We need a different machine to control our lives. We need a political machine to invent false issues for us and then solve those issues. What we really need with regard to all of this is each other. Do that. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for uh, being here and adding your voice, your thoughts, your opinions, your agreements, and your disagreements to this being a very powerful experience. Over between now and the next pilot, a month from now, I want you to be thinking about how will you do this in your location? How will you contact some others? You don't need more than 5 people. I mean, that's how we got these things together. How will you get organized? I'll be glad to give you all my stuff. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to share with you the ways that we can do this where someone takes a good idea and then turns it into Amazon and becomes one of the richest men in the world and keeps all the money. I want to become one of the richest men in the world and known for giving away all the money. Almost all of it.